retreat.
Everybody likes a PAL. I am CouchCoop, and this is my review of PalWorld, which is available on the Microsoft side, Xbox and Steam, and it's doing incredibly well recently. We get it on Game Pass, and this is running on my PC. The game is billed as Pokemon with guns, as you may have seen on recent advertisements, and it takes quite a large pinch from Ark and of course Breath of the Wild. In actual fact, the fast travel piano lick is kind of identical. I've got this on ultra settings, but I've put some of that distance detail down because this is a sort of go anywhere, climb anywhere, and if you can see it in the distance, you can get to it type of game, which again is a definite nod to that awesome Breath of the Wild system. Do start the game in your pants, as with most of these games, and I unfortunately just stepped into a massive fight with an OP PAL, not realizing that without helpers or decent weaponry, you are just going to get slaughtered. Cute design of the enemies I kind of do and don't like. I understand the direction they're coming from, but it is a bit of a jolt to the system if you're used to riding on the back of a very dangerous raptor or megalodon. And the jump from the two games is quite vast, but I like what it's cherry picked from the Ark model. We'll get into a lot of that detail in a second. Just on the Ark subject very briefly, I have reviewed Ark Ascended split screen. I haven't reviewed Ark's Ascended single player sort of game, and I'm going to put that out as my next video because again, interesting things are happening. It's not the best optimized PlayStation 5 version of Ascended, so we'll deconstruct that in the next video. Also struggle being mean with these little pals. It's terrible, some of the things you do, and there's persistent dead bodies, but capturing them, getting them on your side, and the mechanics behind having them on the base and getting them to help you out with a lot of the construction is definitely a very cool element. Fire and the food is kind of your first introduction to how that system all works, and it's not too dissimilar to a lot of other games in this genre, but you get the chance to have your pals give you a hand with constructing furniture. It could be done a lot quicker if you've got more than one of you, and this game does quite strongly lean on online co-op, so there'd be more team members that would get things done a lot quicker. But it's very cool to have certain pals excel in certain areas like gathering or just helping you get things done a lot quicker. This is the Game Pass version of the game being played on PC, and I get no button prompts for my controller. I've had to guess every input so far in the game, but it's been okay. I've managed to work around it. A lot of it you just remember, and it's quite a cool control system, giving like construction on a wheel that's on L3, and you get to interact with the pals. It's not terrible. I just think this needs a little bit more patching. Obviously, you've got the obligatory whack a tree, and using the flat axe gives a better yield. Using the pickaxe on stone, you guys all know the deal, but I just kept forgetting. There is a bed and sleep system. In Ark, the beds are like respawn points, and they're super important. In this, they seem to be there to pass the time, and the respawn point is your actual console that you manage all your pals from, which you only have one of at the start of the game, so you have to operate from a singular base. Tech point system, i.e. the rewards that you get to open up new technology, comes in the form of exploration. When you find a fast travel point, you get rewarded, so it's really pro walk around that map and explore, and I love that idea. It's not just something that ticks over with the more you do in the game. You actually have to focus on exploration. I also have the graphics on Epic in certain areas, but as mentioned before, tipped it down on that draw distance because I was getting huge stutters when panning the camera around and looking at a vast horizon. I think there's just a lot of objects that are loaded in there, and of course a lot of pals that are walking around this landscape. As you may have observed, capturing pals is done in the form of imitation Pokeball, and you have to get the energy down on the pal to be able to open up that window to get it sucked into the ball, so to speak. That's very different to Ark's system. It's not a lengthy taming process, and you get to walk around with your pals on a quick release menu over there on the bottom left, meaning you can throw them out in fights and have them support you just about anywhere at any time. You also have your resident pals that you have at the base, still gathering, still collecting, and this can all be switched and jostled out at your will. Base will also get routinely raided. Now this system has some problems over on PC. I keep getting a false alarm with it. You'll see evidence of that later on, but at the start I was like, this is well cool. It's an opportunity to get new powers and you get to see some mad attacks coming from the stuff that you've already got on your team, and it codes very well with the amount of activity that's happening. I have seen images or thumbnails or even the title card of this game featuring a colossal Pikachu style milligun wielding PAL, and everyone seems to have guns, and a lot of bigger YouTubers have not held back with the Pokemon with guns analogy. I would say it's 5 to 6 hours to open up a decent projectile weapon on one of your PALs. You actually get the mount a little bit quicker, and let's have a look at that now. A little bit like Ark, you need to construct a sort of saddle or some sort of trinket that allows you to use the PAL on an extracurricular basis. And having that mount and that speed is awesome. There's also quite an early gliding mantis, which is awesome, allows you to go across the water, and the water isn't going to kill you instantly. So these islands, although they're quite secluded, are all interconnected with just smaller gaps of water. The longer you keep hold of a PAL, the more it has opened up on its abilities. And you also have a desk that allows you to construct accessories for all of them. So you kind of have to wait sometimes, if you haven't got down that far in the tech tree, to open this sort of stuff up. Real-time deployment of them in combat is pretty amazing, and seeing what they can do, and of course grabbing new ones whilst they're weakened, and just the chaos that ensues, and seeing some of the newer abilities that you've opened up on your PALs is pretty satisfying. There are human-based installations on the map, and they are scaled dependent on what you're at, and the AI on them is not that great, and you can actually capture them if you get their health down low enough. And this location I actually took over. That was sort of one of my first shocks. In early game, you're only allowed one console, and that is your teleport point, and that's the circle that you can build around essentially. You get offered the chance to move it, and it gives you all these warnings, but it does state that everything will come with you. And on completing this, it didn't. So all of my chests and boxes and repair benches were stuck back at the original base. This also mucked around with the raid system because it was sending stuff to a location that I wasn't visiting or using anymore. Not sure if that's a glitch. Put something in the comments. When you reposition your PAL's console, did you get any of the stuff that you built around it coming over with you? And that little Firefox dude help you with the cooking is one of the attractions of the game, and just watching your base and them all milling around and doing their jobs, you get a notification if they slack off, and you can pet them all and interact with just about every single one of them. Fox is actually one of the earlier openings for a decent projectile weapon, giving you a flamethrower once you actually craft the harness allowing you to hold it. Something super strange happened with that lady at the beginning who's sitting at the fire with the shotgun. I approached her, then attacked her, tried to capture her, and she called in all these like extra troops. I was wanted. I had to die to sort of reset things. Then I got a raid at my base, and she was available as a character to put out to defend the base, shotgun and all. So I'm not too sure of how that system works with capturing the NPCs or human players. It's an egg and an egg incubation system. Arx has got the most convoluted and high effort incubation setup ever in gaming. This is surprisingly user friendly, and there's loads of free eggs knocking around, meaning you don't have to knock them out and get them in the ball. You just take the egg back to your incubator, make sure the temperature's okay, and of course the timer clicks down and you get a free PAL. Also a hell of a scope on variety. The first benchmark is to get 30 on board with the base, and you can always choose a different PAL. There's probably 30 plus species just in the opening biome, which is amazing. You also have boss fights shown on the map to you, which are sometimes in dungeon form, or other times might just be quite a big PAL that's high rank that is an incentive for you to get your team together and capture. Different structures and buildings will require different PALs to maintain them. One of them has got a water wheel on it, wasn't aware, didn't put it near a river, but lo and behold, my butterfly and Pingu guy can get that thing turning round. So it's very cool to get new PALs and then excel in some build or some sort of development because you've got that guy on board. Is it a missell to call this game Pokemon with guns? No, not really. You do just have to stick with it. You've got to give it at least 5 to 10 hours to get those tech trees open up and get the sort of trinkets and accessories needed for the correct powers to then have them don weaponry. Having an identical gliding system to Breath of the Wild and a sort of go anywhere attitude with all of the structures, finding little secret chests or even like a rare power that's hidden up somewhere is really where most of the reward is coming. Also, don't play Pokemon and haven't ever played it, even on the Game Boy originals when it first came out. A bit of a blind spot for me, but I am aware of Nintendo's selfishness is the wrong word, because I understand they want to keep that thing on platform exclusive, but the mind boggles to how much money they would make if they released a Pokemon game out on some 10th gen Microsoft or Sony systems. But Nintendo are also one of the most stubborn gaming companies in the world. I'd be very surprised if this setup we have now ever changes. Mind you, I was saying that about Hi-Fi Rush last year, and that's probably going to go onto Switch soon. Should I play Ark? Should I play this? Yes, you will hit the ground running massively. You'll know what you're doing, what's required of you, and you'll just get through everything at a nice slick speed. Someone who's never played these sorts of games is going to struggle with a lot of the intuition. You have to proactively look up a lot of instruction, and it makes quite a lot of assumptions about this sort of gaming mechanic. This is also absolutely perfect for the younger ones if you want to do an online co-op via 2 systems or just sit down together. It's not terrifying and difficult like Ark Ascended is, or the Ark series full stop. That game can break your heart. So far, I haven't had a death in an area that's too difficult to get to and bring my things back, which is something that happens all the time in Ark. You'll lose some massively expensive gold-plated bow and arrow, but with this, I very quickly managed to get things back on track after a death. Just lastly, I do enjoy the dungeon/boss system. It will give you a level warning on entry, and if you look hard enough, you can find some really badass pals that if you win over and have on your team are essentially going to make that boss fight a lot easier. That one was really cool, and again, they're voluntary, so you're not pushed into these dungeons. You can always leave them at any time. It's well cool to have a little look to see what you could have won. Was of course CouchCoop, and I think I only said Ark 70 times in that video. Look forward to uploading that full single player review. We did have a tiny patch in the other day, but I'm going to sit down with it and see what's changed. I will of course see you down there.
Jeez.